Hey everyone, my name is Ryan,
And I'm Olivia.
and welcome back to our 15th episode of Finding True North. And today, if you're in London, it's very hot, so excuse us if we start fanning ourselves or take lots of sips of our drink. We've all got cold drinks on the side in preparation. So, Finding True North is all about sharing the pivotal life lessons and moments that have shaped people's careers, and we are joined each week by a guest. We've done this series because a lot of people don't have access to career stories or inspiration in the time of this pandemic. So, Olivia, who do we have coming up today?
So today we have Ishrath with us from Cundall. She is a senior electrical engineer, and Ishrath is very, I would say, pivotal, excusing the pun, as to why we started this series. So last year, I met a wonderful lady called Anona on a train platform during the train strikes in London. And she was telling me about a school that she works for and Ishrath, who helps mentor some of the students. And she recommended that I get in touch with Ishrath to understand more about Cundall, but also about her passion for women in engineering and mentorship. So I went to meet Ishrath, and I thought she was such a brilliant person that when we were deciding to come up with this web series, I had to ask Ishrath to be involved. And soon enough, I introduced Ryan to Ishrath, and that's how the three of us know each other through that circumstance. So Ishrath is going to talk about her journey through senior electrical engineering, the life lessons that she's learned along the way, and ask Ishrath a question live. So Ryan's going to explain how you can do just that.
Yeah, so throughout the session, if you have a question, you can ask it in the comments section on the platform you're watching, or we'll also be using slido.com. We'll be using that for the poll, but it also takes questions anonymously as well. We'll introduce Slido later on in a couple slides' time. But without that, I will pass it over to Ishra. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ishrath, and I work as a senior electrical engineer in a building services consultancy. So, today I will be talking about what a building service engineering company is and what an engineer does. So, a typical question I'm always asked is, so what does an engineering consultant do? So, with experience and strong technical expertise, engineering consultants spend their time planning, designing, and constructing a wide range of both private and public infrastructure. So with infrastructures, I mean these are buildings which can be built for people to live in, so such as apartments or people to work in, which are referred to as commercial buildings. They can be bridges, they can be towers, they can be runways, airports, hospital, different type of infrastructure. So when architects and builders face technical challenges, or when buildings require improved performance, consulting engineers can assist with the entire framework, such as design analysis, construction detail, and future structural support. So architects are basically the backbone of any building that is to be constructed. People do have a lot of misconception about architects being the engineers. So architects have a vision, and it's the job of the engineers who make that vision work with scientific calculations and engineering solutions. So if I go to this pyramid on my right to explain what electrical engineering is in engineering consultancy and what we do in a day-to-day. So as an electrical engineer, I design all the electrical services that goes inside a building, which is to do with lighting, which is to power every IT equipment, every mechanical ventilation equipment that runs in a building. It is also my job to design the infrastructure that goes in a building to run the electricity from the grid to the building. I work very closely with architects and the clients. The clients are basically the owner of those infrastructure, to understand what their vision is, to understand what their requirements are. And it is our duty to use scientific calculations to make sure that the vision is done correctly and if the infrastructure is designed correctly. So in order to do so, we also liaise with specialist design team, such as acoustics, who deals with sound inside the building. As you know, different buildings sound differently. So if you go to a theatre, there's different acoustics. If you go to a commercial building, there is different acoustics in a building. So that's a special design that we work with. Another new special design that we are currently working with is smart building designers to make the building smart. So I would like to ask everyone a poll questions, which is have you heard of a building services engineer before and what they do? So I'll list out the answers for clarity. So the first one is, I've heard of them before and I already know what they do. I've heard of them before and I have some idea what they do. The third one is, I have heard of them before, but I don't know what they do. And the fourth one being, I have not heard of them before, but don't know what they do. I'll hand it over to Ryan to explain how the Slido.com works.
Yep, so Slido.com is really easy. Just type Slido.com into your browsers and then type in the code FTN, and that will take you to the poll. You can also ask questions as well for later on, so feel free to do that. And what we'll do is we'll revisit the answers to this poll at the end in the Q&A.
That should be interesting. So moving on, I'll explain what building services engineering is all about. So my role as a building services engineer is to design, install and maintain the services that allow a building to do what it's designed to do. So building services engineering is all about making buildings meet the needs of the people who live and work in them. In order to do so, building services engineers, they apply scientific principles to design the buildings we need, and we focus on four very important aspects of engineering. So we have to make sure that the building is safe for people who's occupying them. We have to make sure that the building is efficient and we're not wasting any energy. We have to make sure that the building is sustainable with all the renewable resources that we have in different parts of the world. We make sure that we are utilizing them to make the building efficient. And comfort is also very important in a building, such as heating, cooling, providing the right ventilation, providing the right air conditioning, providing the correct lighting for a different type of building, and also daylighting. So I would like to also talk about a very turning point in my life where I was deciding, after my A-levels, I was deciding to whether I should study abroad or not. I was very anxious, thinking, if I move to a different country without any family support, how am I going to study and also maintain a social life? And that's when this moment came to me, and my mum actually was very inspirational, and she said to me, "You are what you believe you are." And that moment just changed my life. I swear by this tagline, and I always, every time I get a situation or any milestone that I need to tackle, I always say to myself, is there anything that's stopping me from doing that? No, you are what you believe you are. So that's a very important pivotal moment in my life, and that changed my life. So since I touched base a little bit about my background, I will talk through a little bit more on this. So I grew up in Bangladesh, where I finished my O-levels and A-levels. So after finishing my A-levels, actually during my physics lab sessions in A-levels, I've always been a very curious child, and I thoroughly enjoyed all the physics lab sessions where I would do some experiments, do some circuits, and I loved doing it. So my physics teacher actually asked me whether I've considered a career in engineering. So at that time I knew what engineering was, but I didn't know there are so many different types of engineering that could lead me to a career. So I started researching about engineering and type of engineering that would be interesting to me, and I came across this degree in which Queen Mary was listing, which was electronic engineering, which had most of the aspects of electronic as well as touch base on electrical engineering. So that's when I decided to continue my further studies abroad. And during my university years, I was one of those front benchers who would ask questions every single lectures. And I was also very social, so I was part of the engineering society. I was part of the students union, and because I was the one asking questions to all the lectures, I was very close to my lecturers, and they loved me because of that. And I used to also attend the out of hours one-to-one session. So during one of those sessions, one of my lecturers basically said he would be happy to provide me a reference letter for my graduate job. And that's when it kind of hit me that actually I need to apply for graduate jobs, and there are jobs in the industry for graduates. I had no clue that it would be suitable for me. So with my lecturer's help, I started researching, and I used mainly two websites, GradCacker and Target Jobs, where most of engineering graduate schemes are listed. So I came across the company called Cundall, where I'm working at currently, and they were listing for graduate building services engineer. I had no clue what a building services engineer meant. I thought it's maybe fixing light bulbs. So I went online, looked what engineering is, what building services consulting is, where we design everything on softwares using engineering calculations, and then the piece of software gives us the modeling for a building, and then we give it to the construction company who goes and builds it for us. And in the end of the project is where we go and visit site and inspect to see if the construction has been done according to the design that we put forward. So this is how I got to understand what building services engineering was, and I applied for it, and I got the job. And since then, I've been working as a electrical engineer at Cundall. Currently, I'm at senior. So my vision moving forward is I want to be a leader and inspire the young generation into engineering, because when I was growing up, I didn't have any mentor, or I didn't have anyone giving any presentation or any insight about what engineering was and how different type of engineering can impact on the environment and the society that we live in. And so this is why I want to inspire the young generation, and also try and bridge the gap between engineering and just STEM subjects. So there are some key values that I definitely use on my day-to-day life and also help me throughout my career. So the first one is problem solving. So engineering is all about problem solving. Every engineering company, whether it's building services or IT, we always solve problems, and this is very important on a day-to-day life and for any engineering career. Creativity is also very important. I say creativity is intelligence having fun, and with the engineering solutions, with during our problem solving, we come up with creativity. And as you can see, every building is different. So with every project, you get different type of you can experiment with your creativity, and you can build up different type of buildings. And so engineering is very creative. It's okay to make mistakes. It's you have to be honest in every job, and people actually appreciate that you are willing to learn and you are honest and you're brave. And so it's also very important. I use that a lot. I'm not afraid to ask questions, and am happy to accept my mistakes as well. And we should always have open communication. So this is what I say: if you don't ask, you don't learn. So there has been many situations where I've been put in a project which was 9 months already down the line, and it was very difficult for me to understand and grasp all the information. So effective communication actually really helped me to ask the right questions and understand what was going on, and it really helped me in my career. So there are perks of engineering consultancy. I've listed only 3 of them for today. So with buildings, you will be leaving a physical and often visible legacy. Of course, it has a long-lasting impact. For example, the Shard. So whoever worked on the Shard, unfortunately I haven't. I wish I did. Will be very proud of themselves and have this legacy. And it's very it's kind of strange that we work on softwares, and then from what we design on softwares, it gets built and you can see it and you can appreciate it, which is very I would say rewarding. And with projects, you also get the chance of international traveling. So because we design things on softwares, we use engineering calculations. We design buildings not only just in the UK but abroad, using those design principles. And after the building gets built, we always get a chance to go and visit the site to check if that's been constructed accordingly. So that's very exciting. And with building consultancy, you get a lot of work diversity as well. It's not that you're going to be working on one project or one building for 2-3 years. At a time, you'll have at least 4 to 5 projects that you are working on. And every project is different. As I said, every building is different. Every architect has different visuals to different type of buildings. And it never gets boring. I would also like to share 3 takeaways from my career and life lesson. I would say you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. So I will advise people who are maybe halfway through a degree or halfway through some modules and they are not very passionate. I would advise them, you can always start from the beginning. You should always focus on something that you're passionate about, because you cannot be creative and enthusiastic if you are not enjoying what you're doing. So you should always focus on something that you're passionate about. Even if you think it's too late, it's never too late. Effective communication is the key to success. So to the type of job that I do, which is consultancy, we work very closely with the client to understand their requirements. We work with the architects to understand their vision, and we communicate with them effectively to make sure that they understand what we will be providing them as a service, which is engineering. And we also understand what they are trying to get out of the project. So communication is very important to understand. And you can make an impact on society with engineering. The innovation that comes from engineering make our lives so much better in many different ways. And not just building services, but different type of engineering has bigger impact on society. And with the buildings are very important, part of the society, because everyone needs a building to either live in or work in, or for shelter, for treatment. You always need buildings. So I think it's a rewarding job, building services consultancy, because you give so much to the society with engineering. With that, I've moved on to the Q&A session, so I'll hand over to Ryan and Olivier for their exciting questions.
Thank you so much, Ishrath. Just a quick reminder for everyone, if you want to take part in the poll or ask a question, you can do that on slido.com. You can also put questions through the comments tab. But to kick off, I want to go back to something that you said before. Hopefully I heard correctly, and from our previous conversations, I remember you talking about this actually when we first initially met. So if you think about the people that you knew, you didn't know many, I guess, engineers who looked like you, who came from the same background. And it can be quite hard to aspire to something that you don't see in day-to-day life. So my first question, well, is that correct in that I've just interpreted that right? But how did you, I guess, get to where you were? How did you aspire to become, into this, an engineer essentially?
So I would say I'm the first engineer in my family, in the hierarchy, in the mum side, dad side, everyone's side. And I was very curious. I was a very curious child, and I was really good at science, and thoroughly enjoyed all my physics lab sessions. We used to do experiments on Newton's theory. We used to do experiments on different circuits. We used to build transformers. We used to build different motors, and that was I really, really liked and enjoyed them. And I used to volunteer to be the group captain and the lead, and that's how my teacher actually suggested we should actually consider a career in engineering. And with that, and he left, and I didn't know I knew what engineering was, but I didn't know there's different type and so many different type of engineering which can make an impact on the society, and there's jobs out there for different type of engineering. So I started googling the engineering part, which is doing circuits and doing generators, transformers, those kind of engineering, and what would be a career path for them. And they mainly came out with like the searches were electronic and electrical engineering. So I started looking at courses which would incorporate them. And the course that Queen Mary does, the electronic engineering course, it has 50% of the module is electrical and 50% is electronic. So you can understand, you can have understanding on both type of engineering. So electronic is mainly software based, and electrical is mainly hardware based. So I really enjoyed both sides. And when I looked at jobs, that's when I looked at and found building services consultancy. And because I love talking as well, consultancy is something where you do a lot of communication, understand what the client wants, and speak to the architects and different teams to get a design solution. And I thought that would be very ideal for me. So hence why I'm here.
Joe, it's quite funny that I'm pretty sure we may have actually overlapped at our time at Queen Mary, because she was on the electrical engineering side, and the other half of the school is computer science, which is the side I was on.
You might have been in the same lecture as me.
Potentially, we just, it's the way life works, right?
Yes.
It all kind of started when talking to a stranger on a train, essentially. It's what happened with the video, how it all started.
This is awesome.
Olivia, do you have a question from your end?
Yes, actually. Well, Ishrath, thank you very much for presenting on Finding True North, and you've given us such a variety of things to talk about here, and I'm sure the audience are asking questions as well. I have a question, actually, kind of touching on what you just said about getting started with engineering. I think it was really brilliant of your teacher to recommend that you consider engineering, because we're around similar age, but talking from experience. I was, for example, into science, maths, also into English, French, and everything. But I was never once encouraged to go into engineering. I don't think maybe anybody in our class was recommended to go engineering. And I think with you, it gave you that spark, but it also gave you that initial start to get to figure out, well, actually, this is an option for me and I can pursue it. And I think that's a really great thing. Oh, you're about to say something.
Yes, so that was because I wanted to do STEM subjects from a very young age, but I didn't know what to do with them until that time where my teacher suggested that engineering could be one of the careers that you could consider. So, yeah.
I think that's really good, because you essentially were able to harness your curiosity. Curiosity is great, but it's only effective when applied. And and I think with that, I have a question. This teacher recommended for you to study engineering, and I imagine, hopefully, this teacher did it for many other classmates, irrespective of their gender or what gender they associate themselves with. So therefore, when you came to the UK, you probably experienced the same thing I did, where you go into maybe open days or you go into your lecture room, and there's a really big discrepancy between those who identify as male and female. So did you find it quite a shock? Because I imagine from when you were studying in secondary school and A-levels, you probably had a mixture of females and males maybe considering engineering. And then you come to the UK, where there's this really big gap, this big disparity. Did you come across that?
Yes, of course. Every I would say every engineering course we had very the ratio was really bad with girls and boys, and I had the same in Queen Mary, and there were quite a lot of variation in the male to female ratio, and it was difficult for me at the beginning, and I was thinking, why is that the case? Because it was just really strange. I couldn't understand why. And then I met through the students union, I met I met friends who are doing different degrees, and most of them didn't have engineering or any STEM subjects in their professional in their career. And I don't know why. I just found it really strange. And it could be because a lot of people have the misconception about engineering. They don't really understand what engineering is, how much variation engineering like the professional career has. Because even now, when I try and explain to my parents that I do engineering consultancy, electrical engineering consultancy, they think I fix light bulbs. They genuinely think I fix light bulbs because they don't know what building services consultancy is. So there's a lot of misconceptions. Even when I went to different schools to do presentation to inspire young women to take engineering as a career, so many parents came up to me and said, "Oh, this sounds really difficult. I don't think my girl can do it." You just need to explain to them this is how it is, and I've done that. I'm an example of someone who was born and brought up in Bangladesh, who came to a different country, adjusted to the environment and to the teaching as well, because it's different the way we were taught in Bangladesh. And I've got a career in engineering, and I'm doing really well. And I think we need to have a lot more role models to spread the word.
Do you know, it really makes, just as you were talking there about the male and female discrepancy, it reminds me of lots of different scenarios where I've gone to a lot of gender network events or women events as well through in a professional setting, going along as an ally. And one of the things that we try to encourage, and I think everyone can do, is when you're going to something, can you bring someone else along with you who's maybe opposite to you or different to you to help encourage that diversity? So whether it's an open day, if you're a student, can you encourage your friend to come along with you? Or if you're in a professional setting and you're going to a particular event, can you bring someone who might not have gone to that event? I think is a nice action we can all take.
Yes, that's definitely that's a good idea. And also, I'd like to say, maybe because I grew up, me and my brother, we're twins, so I grew up with a boy, and I've never had that discrepancy, boy and girl. And I was always playing football and doing all the activities that my brother was doing, and got involved with his friends as well. I never felt that bridge between there's a gap between female and male and boy and girl, and I've always had mixed friends. So I think that's one of the other cases where I never felt different. And yeah, it was different for me when I came here, and it was very different because of the misconception, I'd say.
So a question from the audience: how do you solve problems that you are tasked with? So I guess, what's your thought process when you come to problem solving?
So the first thing I do is I list out all the items which are problematic or that needs resolving. For example, on a typical day, I've got 5 items on a project which needs resolving. So I do bullet points, which helps me focus on one thing at a time. And then I see a problem. For example, I need to, I don't know, design the lighting for a building. So what are the issues? I see if there are any constraints. If there is, who do I need to speak to? I always say and try and recommend calling people rather than emailing. So I try and give them a quick call, which gives a quick answer. That's the best way to do. First thing, quick call, see if that person's able to answer, and then confirm it via email afterwards. So this is how I try and do it. And if I don't know the answer to it, I try and ask my seniors and try and get some guidance from them to see, okay, this is a problem. This is what I think it should be the answer, but I'm not quite 100% sure. Have you got any thoughts on it? Are you happy to maybe discuss it with someone else if you think that's needed? And also, we use professional software. So if we've got a solution, sometimes we can use software to check if this solution works. So for example, sizing cables, we can hand calc it, do a hand calc to size them, and then also check it on the software to see if it has any errors on it. So there's different ways where we solve problems on a day-to-day.
That's really interesting because, of course, early on you were talking about how, especially with engineering or even engineering consultancy, there's a misconception as to what you do. And I, thinking back to my university days, at the careers fairs, there were always the same companies that were always being promoted. And even in lectures, we were never really told, okay, well, you're doing electronics and you may be doing a little bit of control theory, but how do you apply that to a consultancy environment? And from what I can understand, even though you may not necessarily be applying engineering principles, well, not engineering principles, I mean like theoretical engineering, the sense of what you study for exams in engineering consultancy day to day, you do apply the engineering mindset, which is very, very specific. And I don't think, unless you study engineering, it may be difficult to understand, but there's like a subliminal way of thinking and a way of approaching a problem that is very focused and very direct, but yet is also very collaborative. And you describing how you approach a problem, it reminds me of effectively the way that I work now. It's very similar. It's very step by step.
Step by step, yes.
Break it down from complexity to simplicity, then ask around, get a consensus, and then try and get a solution that is applicable and compatible with the effort effectively.
Yes, and also like after end of a project, we always do lessons learned with the wider team to tell them what went well and what didn't go well, and people can also learn from them. So this is how we do our day-to-day problem solving. And most of the companies which have graduate schemes, they basically teach you through your graduate scheme how you should be approaching a project, what are the to do for this aspect of the work, and how you should be approaching external clients, external architects and different teams to understand what's going on and what will be the right answer to certain things which you don't learn at university. Of course, you've with university degree, you've proven that you can learn, you have learned, and you've got the learning capability, but not everything from university will apply to our day-to-day professional life, and this comes with learning, I'd say. So if you're passionate about the job that you're doing, you will be happy to learn and remember it and then note it down for further application, I would say. This is what I do. So yeah.
This next question kind of takes a bit of a shift, actually. So obviously we're in a pandemic at the moment, and buildings and workplaces, and there's lots of buildings which are empty because people are working from home. What has been the impact of the pandemic on your work in terms of big corporates or big buildings that are under construction?
So there hasn't been a lot of impact apart from buildings which are airport related. So the projects which I was working on, which were aviation related, they did stop for a while because the airport were closed, so they couldn't work. But the other construction, they kept running. So there wasn't any ban on working on construction sites, so we didn't have any any pause on any projects. And because of the pandemic, we had more projects which were design stage than construction stage, because a lot of our clients were getting the design part now, because while we are in the office or while we are working on our laptop, we could do the design. The construction can come afterwards. So this is a shift that I've realized and came across, that people are more willing to do the design part of it for now and then wait until everything goes back to normal. Then they could implement it to a construction site.
That is. Can I just say thank you very much to the person who asked that question, because I think it's a great question to ask. Because early on in your presentation, you were talking about senior electrical engineer in the world of a consultancy, and there are lots of different groups of people that you interface with: the architects, the clients, and the other portions. And with the pandemic, it will probably affect building services in the way that it is consulted, in the way that clients approach. And I have a question regarding the vision, because you were talking about how there's lots of specialists that are involved in a project that help you bring your vision to life, even though you're working with lots of different team members. Mm-hmm. But with the pandemic, do you think it will change how you make your vision come to life, with the different constraints and maybe the different needs that will arise now?
Yes, of course. So we're already seeing a change. So in the ventilation design, what we do, and in the mechanical services, there has been quite a few changes to understand how the calculations could be done, how the recirculation of the air could have been better, so that we don't recirculate the air which has been excelled, and making the building more sustainable, more natural ventilation, more floor to ceiling high, so there is more air moving around. So there has been changes, and with especially design as well, we've seen that most of our clients are moving towards sustainability. Because with I would say with before the pandemic, the world was going very fast. It was going to a super fast pace, and now because everything's just gone to a stop, and because of the carbon footprint, how it's improved, because there is no vehicles, the airplanes, ships, there is no pollution. I think people have realized a few months of lockdown could impact so much to the environment. So we are getting a lot of inquiries on sustainable buildings, net zero carbon, and so sustainability and efficient design is shifting towards quite more during the after the pandemic, I'd say.
How much room is there for experimentation and innovation? And the reason why I ask is because if you're working on, say, mobile app designs, you can throw out an experiment and it has a low impact if it goes wrong. When you're talking buildings, like that's a big impact if it goes wrong, and we've seen that happen with wobbly bridges here and there. Is there any room for experimentation or innovation? How do you do that?
So there are different stages of projects. We do the concept stage, and then we do a design stage, and then we do a detailed design, and then technical design stage. So during the concept stage, we have loads of room for experimentation, and then we narrow it down to see which one is actually doable and which one we can achieve with the amount of capital cost that is required to build that, the amount of footprint that we have for a building, and of course we also have to understand about planning permission. So we have to understand whether a building, if we are going through a planning stage, whether it will get planning permission or not. So during the concept stage, there are loads of room for experimenting to understand what the vision is and what we could do, and then we narrow it down towards the detail stage. And if a vision, suppose we go forward with a vision, and then during the technical design where we do the calculations, it does not work, we go back and then try and iterate a different solution which would work. So so there are different stages, and there is definitely room for creativity at the concept stage, where we throw out different ideas, and we work with the architects and the clients to understand their vision, and then put in a little bit of our creativity to get to the endpoint.
Very, very. To be fair, I expect nothing less. When I first met you, Ishrath, you were so. You have a wonderful way of talking, because you obviously what you're talking about is very complex, but you talk about it in such a way that is very digestible, and I can see it evident in this discussion with you, which is absolutely fantastic. With that, I completely have confidence that towards the end of our presentation now, the audience know exactly what a building services engineer is, but I want to know from the poll, from the very beginning, what were the results? What did they say?
Yeah, that was very interesting. I'm so interested to see that.
Let me have a look at the results. So, split vote between I've heard of them before but don't know what they do, and I have not heard of them before but don't know what they do. From my own personal perspective, I feel like some people would have heard of, something's wrong in the building. It's like, go and get the building engineer, and that's about it.
Yes. And that's different to what we do.
That's the light bulb.
Yeah, so the building engineer, there is a team from the client side. Every building has designated, and they have technical expertise who come and decide, okay, this is actually what's wrong with the building. This is the person I need. So for example, I need to go and get a contractor to fix the light bulb, or I need to go and get a contractor to fix the ventilation. So every building has a building management team where there's technical people who know about engineering, different type of engineering in a building, and they can decide what needs to be done to fix whatever is wrong. And then we can come and advise on technical expertise if it needs any calculation, or if it needs any scientific approach to it. So that's when people can appoint building services engineer to look at an existing building and advise on what's wrong with it and what will be the remedial works which needs to be done to make the building safe, compliant, efficient, and sustainable. So yeah.
Just a follow-on question. What would be your advice for graduates or even students who are looking at what course to study? How would you say they should approach finding jobs that they may not have ever heard of and even know what it means? Because at some point, someone maybe saw this role and gone, well, I don't know what it means. You can either take that two ways. You can either go, I don't know what this means, I'm not going to do it, or I don't know what this means, I'm going to search it up and then I may potentially do it. What would be your advice?
So the first advice would be logging into these presentations where people talk about different engineering and clear out all the misconceptions. So that's the first thing I would advise everyone to do. These sessions are very important and very knowledgeable. And then also during this pandemic, and because everyone is home and people are spending a lot of time indoors, I would suggest people to log in online. There is so many different type of trainings. Just search online to see if there is any free training that you could log on to, and then see if that interests you, to understand, okay, this is something I might be interested in. Because I know for a fact that building service engineers, there are loads of online training which are free and people can log in and understand, and then that might be a starting point for students who are thinking of a career in engineering, but they don't really know what type of engineering is suitable or interesting. And yeah, I think that would be that these two would be very good starting points.
I think that's very sound advice, and I think the mentors that you have, Ishrath, are very lucky that you are so knowledgeable and that you're willing to craft advice in a very packageable way. And I hope your mentors benefit from this episode. And I want actually to wind back a little bit and talk about your pivotal moment, which is where your mum said to you the phrase, "You are what you believe you are."
Yeah.
And I think that's very important because, as we move through life, we, of course, achieving lots of things, in your career, wise, is very important. But we cannot forget the fundamental importance of self-perception and self-talk, because that emphasis is on what you believe, and there's that emphasis on that you control what you believe. And of course, you may have different perceptions of what you should be, but it all comes down to you. And coming to your position now where you're a senior electrical engineer, I'm sure there have been many moments where people, or maybe you even doubted, who do I believe that who do I believe myself to be? And if I am to move from A to B, do I need to change my mindset to navigate from one position to the other? And I wanted to know your opinion on this, essentially, that let's say you're very, very talented and you have all the skills in the world, but your self-perception of yourself doesn't match the potential that you truly have, and that may affect your ability to be the very best that you can be. What do you feel about the fact that well, how can I put it this way? What do you feel is important when navigating a career? Do you feel that the skills that you acquire and developing those are important? Or do you also feel that, developing your self-talk and self-perception about yourself and what you believe is also important?
So I actually believe you should always, to navigate your career, you should always, the first thing I say is whether I am interested in this, whether that interests me. Because with me, I would say I won't be able to do my day-to-day life, not able to wake up in the morning and feel happy about if I'm not enjoying what I do. So the most important thing is you should enjoy what you're doing and then move forward from that. And to navigate to a career and where you're not 100% sure of, you can always ask for opinions from different expertise. So for example, when I was thinking to navigate my career to a senior, I wasn't 100% sure whether I'm capable of or not. So I sat down with my line manager to explain to him what my strengths are, this is my interest, and this is where I want to be in my further career, and spoke about my career aspirations. And that's when he advised me that yes, you do have the capabilities, and you should actually go forward with it, and put yourself forward for a senior role. So I would say interest is very important, and also if you're 100%, if you're not 100% sure, if you don't have that gut feeling from inside, you should always get someone, some third person advice. Speak to your parents, or speak to your peers and say, this is what I'm thinking to do, what do you think? Because sometimes you might not know about 100% about your capabilities, but your peer or someone who's close to you might know, and might be able to advise that this is something suitable to you and your character, and you will excel in that career.
That's interesting. Would you say then that in order for you to know what you believe, you need to be aware of how things work in order for you to, I guess, to calibrate your perception of what you are and what you're capable of?
I don't 100% believe that you need to know everything, because when I started at building services, I didn't know what the hierarchy was. I didn't know how I'm going to be, what will be my career in 5 years' time, if I'm going to be sticking to building services. I think I would advise that if you think something is interesting for you, you should go forward with it. I would rather regret doing it than not regret not doing it, basically. This is what I feel like. I'd rather do it and then regret it than not doing it at all, and then regretting whether I could have done it. And this is my honest opinion. I'd say this is how I've dealt with situations where I had to choose between something, and I thought, okay, I will give it a go. So so that was also one of the things where I decided to come to this country, because I didn't know whether I'm going to succeed, whether I'm going to like it. I didn't know the environment, and my mum, of course, inspired me. And also I said to myself, if I don't go abroad and study and seek a further career into engineering in a different country, I'll always have that regret. What if I had gone and I would have done better than what I was going to do? And I would say that is the best decision I've ever made in my life, that I should go and take the risk. And then there's always a second chance in life. So you should not get afraid of making choices if that is interesting.
Two things came to mind as you were both talking there. One, on the piece around regrets. And someone once said to me that most people regret things that they didn't do more than the things that they did do.
Yeah, that's true.
And another thing that popped up in my head is the power of, if you don't necessarily believe in yourself, having someone else who believes in you or sees a spark in you that you think that they somehow can just identify. I think that belief from an external source can really be empowering for you. And equally, there's some cases where I've had where others don't believe I can do something, and I kind of go, well, I'm not 100% sure if they're right or not. I'm going to give it a go. And my funny example is my dad once said, like, Ryan, you're just not built for running. So I thought, okay, I don't know if that's true. I'm going to prove him wrong. And I ran a marathon, and that's what kind of provoked me. I was like,
I love that. Ryan, you effectively said, okay, that's your impression. That's subjective. That's not objective. I'm going to find that out.
Yeah.
Especially if you've never done it before. Like, how can you definitely say this unless you go and test it out? So my last question for me before I pass it back to Olivia, you touched upon mentors, and we know that you are involved with a couple different mentoring programs with schools. What would you say makes a really good mentee-mentor relationship? Like, what does a mentee have to do to really get the most out of a mentoring relationship?
Communication, I would say. The more we communicate, the more we understand about each other's requirements. And so most important would be communication, effective communication, open communication. Because if you don't ask the right questions to your mentor, the more you ask, the more you learn about a career or about getting into professional environment where people are seeking advice. And because obviously, if I'm mentoring someone, I wouldn't know what are the things that this person's not 100% sure of, that person's lack confidence in. I can help them only if they communicate with me effectively to express what their feeling is, what their fears are, what they're not sure of, what are the advice that they are seeking from me as a mentor. So communication is very important, one of the most important factors, I'd say.
I think that's really great. And with people watching, it's likely that they won't be just students, but they're young professionals as well. And how would you give advice to such people, young professionals, on how to get started with mentoring after graduation?
I would say just look online. There's so many different websites and different organizations that help with mentoring, and try and call them or email them to see if you could get involved. And then back when I was starting my career, there was not a lot of advertising or marketing as much as we have right now. So there's loads of marketing online. If you just Google something, if you want to try and find some mentoring local to your area, you can always find it. There's so many different websites online which would help. And and look on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a lot of mentoring organizations who are always happy to get volunteers. So I would say, look up online and look on LinkedIn. And maybe if you are looking to mentor someone, just put a post in saying, I'm looking to mentor someone. There's going to be so many people coming forward with this mentoring scheme.
I think that's, thank you for giving that advice. I'm sure lots of people will be looking into that now. I actually have a question, because you have been mentoring for, I would say, quite a couple of years now, and you're very enthusiastic and engaged with the level of mentorship that you do. From what I've understood from Anona, especially, you put a lot of time to tailor your mentorship to those, so that they don't just get what they come for, but they can grow with that mentorship experience from you. And of course, you spoke about, with mentorship, there's needs to be effective communication so that you can build that that bond and trust between mentorship and mentee. And I wanted to know, what has been probably the best lesson that you have learned through mentoring others?
Best lesson, I would say, from mentoring, there is so many that I can't choose. I would say the all the mentees, initially they're very scared because they've never been to a professional office or world where they talk to professionals. So in the beginning, they're very, very shy and scared. So the first thing I would say, try and break the ice. Try and this lessons learned is try and talk about their friends, and try and talk about what they do as a hobby. Try and get them to engage with you on the first day of mentorship, so that they kind of feel neutral and they don't feel intimidated by professional and talking to a professional. And so that would be a lessons learned and advice, that try and engage and try and talk to them, ask about hobbies. Don't just jump into mentoring, or don't just jump into, this is the professional world, here is how you do your CV, here's how you go and find a job. That would be very intimidating for someone who's really young and trying to get into a professional environment.
Just something that comes to my mind when I've done it with some of my older mentorship relationships, so 18 plus, because obviously if it's below 18, there's safeguarding and you need to be in particular rooms, etc. But when it's been 18 plus, I sometimes go for like a walk with them, because it just is a bit more informal, which has been quite nice. And it's a nice way to break the ice. Obviously, that doesn't work for mentoring relationships. Say with schools, it does need to be a bit more monitored than that. Olivia, thank you so much, or Ishrath, for taking our questions. We will have an opportunity to actually answer some more in our episode highlights document. So Olivia is going to run through what's happening next.
Great. So if you can go to the next slide, it will explain more about the episode highlight document. Oh, fantastic. So Ishrath, thank you once again.
Thank you so much for getting me involved in this. I thoroughly enjoyed the session today, and yes, thank you so much for getting me involved.
Oh, you're welcome. You've been a great guest, and I thoroughly enjoyed having this kind of virtual three-way conversation. We haven't had any technical difficulties this episode, which has been great. But fingers crossed. I hope there's no even wood. I can't door. There you go. So far. But if you enjoyed Ishrath's episode as much as Ryan and I did, we will be summarising this episode in a highlight document, which has all of Ishrath's slides and additional Q&A that we probably couldn't ask. We could not ask during the episode because of a lot of time that we have. So you can submit your questions via Slido, and Ishrath will answer them by writing a response in this PDF. That PDF will be released on Friday, the 14th of August, and it will be published on the Tech Allies Network website, specifically on the Finding True North webpage, which you can see on your screen now, the URL, and it will also be in the YouTube description. Next week, we will be back at Wednesday, 19th of August, 5 o'clock, where we will be having Sam, who actually Ryan and I know through a, how can we put this, a submission. Basically, Maheen, who was with us earlier on in the series, suggested that Sam, who was her old colleague, comes to his story. So he'll be with us next week on Wednesday. And Ryan, have you got anything else to add?
Just that, Sam's a DevOps engineer, so it'd be really interesting to cover a different role. DevOps is quite popular at the moment. There's a lot of buzz. And also, today is actually International Youth Day. So it's really nice that we got to run one of these sessions, as this is kind of our outreach to young people, but I think it's people who are young at heart. We don't have to bucket it to a certain age. And thank you so much, Ishrath, for joining. It's kind of full circle because the work that we've done with Lambeth College connected us with yourself and also kind of inspired this series. So it's kind of full circle.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add before we go, and Ishrath, I just want to say, I think you are a great ambassador for a kind of women in engineering movement, whereby it's a very inclusive, embracive effort to get more females into the field, and also just to make the engineering industry a very welcoming and warm place to be in. So thank you very much, and I look forward to see how your career. You're welcome. I look forward to seeing how your career progresses over time. So thanks again.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.